Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be talking about one of the newer cards in the game for Monarchs, in particular for this video. It's going to be an updated build for Monarchs in case you guys do want to play Monarchs in 2021. So anyways, Uncamouflight is a new pendulum card. Don't worry, you're not going to actually use like pendulums and Monarchs. That wouldn't really make too much sense. But Monarchs definitely benefit off of having no extra deck. But this card, even though it will go to your extra deck, because what you're going to do is you're going to pop it, draw a card, so it's almost like Upstart, but your opponent doesn't get that 1,000 life points. And then what you can do with it is you can go ahead and special summon it, and then when it leaves the field, it becomes banished. So basically, you still have no extra deck. That's very important because if you played Monarchs, you've probably seen this card before called Domain of the True Monarch. So we'll be doing some gameplay as well as a deck profile. We're also kind of showing off Spriggans here. It's an archetype that I did briefly cover, but you guys will see more of the gameplay of it. It's an archetype that kind of reacts via banishing itself, and then you get to get rid of a card. And most of the cards reoccur from the graveyard, and they come back and get to attach themselves as fuel for one of their main cards, which is the X Blower, which lets you choose an opponent's monster zone or spawn trap zone, and you get to detach a number of materials from this card. And if you do destroy that many cards, your opponent's controls that are in the chosen zone and or in the monster zones or spawn trap zones to the top, bottom, or adjacent to the chosen zone. If you guys have ever played Battleship, like as a kid, the one game with the little like pegs, where like there's little plastic ships and you would hide all your battleships, that's kind of what the archetype is about. But the main thing I really want to focus in on is actually going to be this card, as it does add quite a bit to the deck. He could have attacked for a little bit more, it wouldn't have been game. But what it definitely does do is push your opponent. Let's say if they pay like 2k life points, Monarch can easily hit for 6k, but they're just like short a little bit sometimes. So what you're able to do now with this card, if you want to attack with it, it has okay stats. It's 1800. It's a level 5, which is kind of unfortunate. Just because you never know when you might want to normal summon it for game. It's relatively rare, but you can just put it in the extra deck, right? You can just put it in the extra deck and then just summon it, and then it'll eventually go away. So it's okay still at the end of the day for the stats. 1800 attack, I would say, is viable enough. But with Monarchs, what it does definitely let you do is have an extra card to tribute. Sometimes you just don't open up with the right cards. You don't have the Stormforth. You have, not enough of these smaller monsters to extend your plays. You just need that extra card, that extra monster, that extra body to be there so you can stall or whatever the case may be. So it definitely is a fantastic card in Monarchs. I was also thinking about like what other archetypes, if you guys can think of any, let me know in the comment section below, that could make use out of this card, because I think it's just overall a pretty decent card, but you're pretty much locked to not having any cards in the extra deck. You could think about maybe, with like Disparity, Extrav, like any of the cards that would like banish. The problem is that like sometimes you just don't have enough of those cards drawn early enough, so you still happen to have like a couple cards in your extra deck, and then this card would be then not useful until you use Extravagance 3 times, right? So there is that like risk factor if you just want to throw it in every deck. But at the moment, I would say the only deck that I can see a huge benefit off of, because it doesn't actually stay in your extra deck because you don't want the extra deck, is because, well, that's Monarchs, right? And this is a newer card that I didn't get to cover as far as gameplay, and I finally got some courtesy of Mr. Bic Dig, which is a hilarious username, so shout outs to him over here. But it almost reminds me, I don't know if any of you guys have seen Dig Beak in Forbidden Memories. It's a meme in the Yu-Gi-Oh community because obviously they swapped the first letter. But nonetheless, he's going to go ahead and have a bunch of the Prime Monarchs. In fact, I've seen people even try to make some other plays of, obviously this card is kind of a free card that you'll be getting over and over again. So I've seen some people try stuff with extra decks and stuff in Monarchs, but overall the most powerful way to play Monarchs is a no extra deck. And sometimes it's even hard to fit the room for the hand traps because Monarchs, they have some brick issues with consistency, but of course with the newer ban list, with all of the Monarch draw power at multiple, there was like an increase in players trying to play this deck again, but I think Yu-Gi-Oh has definitely gotten much faster to the point where Monarchs, in fact, they had one of the lowest win rates. I think it's also because a lot of people had the deck, and if a lot of people have, the deck and they want to play it, you know, it might have a lower win rate just because there's so many people playing it when you look at just the flat numbers. There's a Yugioh website that we looked at this. This is obviously without counting the newer card. Is the newer card going to make Monarchs a lot better? Definitely. It is definitely a great card just to add. Again, it's just a free extra cycle through one card, and you have an instant card to access the tribute. Back in the day when I used to play like regular Monarch, we had to play Card Trooper and what was it, Treeborn Frog to try to go for the plays with tributing in Monarchs. But yeah, things have definitely evolved since then, that's for sure. But this Brigand archetype is something that I think a lot of people are kind of trying out, but I just see it lose like so often. It's not like a bad archetype, considering like you just use one card and you can just go right into this. But the game has gotten a lot more negate heavy, and if there is a grind game, I would say Monarchs can still definitely do okay, and they can be kind of reactive during your opponent's turn, depending on which cards you play. And I will give you guys a deck profile for Monarchs really quick over here, because I think it's still an archetype that people like to play. And you know, while it might not be the best, most meta deck, you know, this is a new card, and I want to cover the new content for you guys, regardless if it's meta or not. People like to see, you know, new things. But this is another card, speaking of new things, that I've seen, and I think this is an okay card just to run like one copy of it in Monarchs. This is Delg the Dark Monarch. Its effect is when this card is normal or special summon, you can target up to 2 cards in your opponent's graveyard and banish those targets. Obviously, Golden Lord boy, get him out. You know, any archetype, you know, the off chance someone's still playing like livestream, you know, banish those names for the Judgment Dragon. You know, just getting rid of cards in the graveyard that would reoccur is still not that bad. However, he has a downside where he can't attack the same turn. But hey, speaking of Delg, so this Brigand archetype is all about attaching them as materials. So it's a good card, maybe even as a side deck for Monarchs. But even main decking one, I think could be okay. At the end of the day, Monarchs, again, it might not be the most competitive deck, but any little advantage at the end of the day will help out for sure. So he's going to go ahead and attack over, and we're also going to see the Aether. So somebody got triple of them out over here. Maybe go for those rank 8s if we played them. No, because you can't play them in Monarchs, because you definitely need Domain, as it's the most important card. It makes it so. And Spring is definitely an extra deck only deck. If you lock them out, they're not going to be doing so hot, but you just decided to go ahead and quit there. But anyways, now that you guys have seen the gameplay of the card, I mean, it's a really simple effect, but I have to show you the gameplay to just refresh you guys on Monarchs here. But let's go ahead and hop into a really quick deck profile for the Monarchs. Alrighty guys, so let's go ahead and hop right into the deck profile. I want to show you guys as it was shown off during the gameplay, but I also want to give you guys some other suggestions that would definitely help out the deck in case maybe you don't want to play some of these cards, or if you just want some other options here. So the main highlight again and the spotlight is really Uncamouflight, as it does definitely help out the deck, no doubt about that. But let's go ahead and hop right into it, and I'll explain some of the other options that you guys can also play if you guys want to take the deck a little bit more serious. Although Monarchs, I would say, is not, again, the best deck. It's a deck that a lot of people like to come back to once in a while, so here's a updated version with Uncamouflight, which no doubt should be in Monarchs for 2021. Anyways, so we've got you know, multiple copies of Herbrus. We got triple Herbrus, triple Aether. Then we've got Delg. This card I think is a great tech card at 1, or at least side deck this card. Then of course Uncamouflight works really well with the deck. We also have Eidos Idea. There's also the other smaller card if you wanted to play it. There is one more Vassal. If you wanted to play, there's like these like smaller Monarchs. There is a few other ones. Mithra over here, the Thunder one. Some people like to play that card as well, but pretty much Eidos and Idea are the main stars of like the smaller ones. Then we have 1 for 1. We have 3 copies of the Pantheism Exo card again from that newer updated list that we had. This definitely helps out. Then we got Rhoda for, of course, your Idea. And then we have 3 copies of Tenacity, 1 Upstart, Foolish, Reborn, Called, and then triple copies of Storm 4, one of the best cards, and then Return of the Monarchs. If you don't want to play 3, you can definitely drop this. It can considered to be a win harder card, but it lets you reoccur and kind of have a better game, you know, over the long course of time. If this is up turn 1, it's just so dang good. You don't have to play 3 if you want, so I could see easily dropping 2, as I definitely want to give you guys some other suggestions, but again, this is the way that it was used during the gameplay from Vic over here. But yeah, 3 copies of the Domain, and then 3 copies of Prime. So other cards, and I do want to mention, a lot of people, when they first see this deck, they also think about, like, you know, why don't you have Veilers? You know, why don't you have, like, the Imperms and the Hand Traps? Honestly, you're going to brick pretty hard in this deck if you start playing, like, all these other cards. The reason why is you need your consistency for the Monarchs and to be, like, you know, potentially reactive during your opponent's turn. There are other options like Escalation, where you get to, during your opponent's turn, you get to go for your card. Or you can even throw in, if you want to throw in the other Monarchs, as having access to the additional monster definitely will let you go for multiple tributes, which again lets you go for the bigger Monarchs over here. Sometimes you get really good effects with, you know, the Stalos, Kaias could be cool too, or even Zaborg popping itself, and if you really want to, you can try to run an extra deck and then get rid of the cards. And then with Elder Entity and Chest, you can go off and pop extra cards or do other things. There's a lot of different ways to play it, but this is in what I would consider the pure version. Now, if you want to play the Fiend version of Monarchs, and I think it's the best, maxing out on Vanities definitely is a great idea. Even throwing in like Majesty's Fiend, maybe 3 of these, maybe 1 or 2 Majesty's Fiends, I think is another excellent example of great cards. You could definitely side deck this card, and you know, if you want to play like, you know, 2 of these, I would highly suggest playing Vandy's Fiend, because it's just so good in the meta of the game. Jinzo's actually going to be a pretty decent side deck card as well. The reason why I wanted to mention it over here is there are some archetypes that heavily rely on traps, and if you just summon Jinzo, it's game over for some archetypes. And so I really recommend Jinzo, at least in the side deck as well. But there are other cards like Lightning Storm where you can try to deal with these turn 1 insane boards, but Monarch doesn't have, you know, sometimes the best matchup against, you know, 50 negates, but, you know, again, a lot of decks won't have options for that because you don't have like Super Poly, or if you want to, you can maybe even try Nibiru. I've seen some players try that because, again, that's one problem that Monarchs have. They don't have like summon again, special list. They're not like an insanely combo heavy deck versus like, you know, this card lets you get some extra draw power. You tribute your opponent's thing potentially with like Stormforth also, so you might not need that. You know, giant rock guide for that Nibiru plays. But these are other cards which are, you know, some might have extra synergy, like Droplet can technically have some synergy with some of the cards for your extra draw power and stuff like that. But again, the main problem that you have with Monarchs when you play a lot of the other Monarch support, like there's Erupt, there's a lot of actually really decent cards. Even in like True Dracos, they'll kind of mix some of these cards because some of these won't even require specifically a Monarch, it's just a tribute summon monster. But it's just a brick at the end of the day compared to these Yu-Gi-Oh combos that would rely off of like 1 card to go ahead and throw up a huge, insane board. But anyways, at the end of the day, that's some suggestions for you guys. You guys can let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section below. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. And if you enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. And if you are new here and you want to be up to date on newer Yu-Gi-Oh stuff in the future, hit subscribe, turn that bell, and you'll definitely see more. And take care, and I'll catch you on the next video, and I'm out. Peace.